Rather than that song that says the streets have no names, I'm entitling it the streets have no bins. Once that sun does puck up, we have more leaks in the van. As you can see, whoop, well recovered, Nigel, well recovered. Anything other than one-dimensional, or two-dimensional, I guess. There are some clouds just kissing the tops of those mountain ranges. The main problem with being an old fart is there's not a huge amount of skedaddling that gets done these days. So I just don't think this is working at all. Anyway, still lovely to be out. Well, good morning, folks. And welcome back to the channel, and welcome back once again to County Donegal. Rather than that song that says the streets have no names, I'm entitling it the streets have no bins. But that's a whole different story. It looks like it's going to be an absolute stunner of a morning. Now, given the fact that we are middle of May, it probably also means that given the lack of massive amounts of cloud overhead, that once that sun does poke up over the horizon, unlike the previous vlog where we were at Fanad Head and we had some lovely cloud cover and we were able to shoot for quite a while after sunrise. Not quite sure how much there's going to be after sunrise, but you never know. Anyway, still lovely to be out. I've been to this beach before. I'll put a link up in the one of the corners. But anyway, we shall dander on and see whether we can kind of get something. I'm already thinking a pre-sunrise shot. Again, you're probably not going to be able to make this out, but the clouds up above have a lovely sort of curvature to them. And there's a very natural curve on this beach as well. Maybe get something pre-sunrise there. Filling that maybe up into the dunes. It's a very, 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 very windy and rainy last night. We have more leaks in the van. Oh, that's again a whole different story, a whole different rant. That storm has moved through and it's left a very calm looking sea out there, which doesn't bode well for photography. In fact, I've just realised we came out walking here yesterday at low tide. All of these stones weren't there. Wow. Okay. I'll wander on and see whether we can get something. So I've come up into the dunes. Actually, I was starting to walk towards. There's a lovely reflection with the outgoing tide and that rising sun, but I just fear, having been on the same level as the beach, it's very flat, not locking on with it with the tide. I would have to be sort of pointing a huge amount up because all of the interest is going on in the sky now. It's beautiful. I mean, the early morning light really is reflecting off those high altitude clouds, and there's a big old jet contrail going through the sky as well, which sometimes adds or detracts from the natural feel of the image. But so I've got the camera set up here, as you can see. Whoop, no great shakes. It's just really a sort of a record off that sky more than anything else. No filters. I think it's about a 1 second exposure, and trusting in an ideal world, I'd still be using graduated filters. I guess I could put a couple of exposures together, but I'm actually starting to trust the ability to pull shadows out of the GFX files. So I'm underexposing the image, and hopefully be able to still pull out enough detail in the foreground. As you might be able to tell, there's still quite a strong wind coming in behind me, so that 1 second exposure is actually going to sort of make a lot of these dunes kind of blurred out in the foreground. But it really is all about the lovely curves and the lovely textures and pink colour in the sky. Right, well, I'll put this hood up. Well recovered, Nigel, well recovered. And I'll also put this image up. And we'll see whether we can find something else. What a beautiful morning to be out though. Okay, so changing tack somewhat. I've now brought myself kind of away from the beach and I'm starting to walk down towards, you've probably seen these boats before in a previous vlog, a couple of sort of wrecks of boats. Now, the clouds above the mountains, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why I've come down here. One, again, I said it before, there's not a huge amount of kind of energy in those waves. And I think heading that way, the images would have been struggling to be anything other than one-dimensional. Or two-dimensional, I guess. Or however, now pointing myself this way, while the clouds haven't taken on any colour yet, there are some clouds just kissing the tops of those mountain ranges. Errigal being kind of over here on the right hand side. And once that sun rises up over the visible horizon, we might actually get some lovely light cast upon those mountain ranges, bringing on some colour, and of course on the sides of these boats. So just as I was walking down to the boats, there's a 65 by 24 image that I'm maybe going for here. Now, a bit of a natural kind of man-made path here going down towards the boats, but it helps to sort of hopefully draw the eye in. Now, I personally think I'm a little bit too far away from the boats at the moment, so there's a huge amount of the frame. I kind of don't want too much of the upper frame to be sort of without the clouds, so I'm having to include quite a lot of the lower frame. It's a bit too man-made, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk a little bit forward and then set the shot up. So I have come a little bit closer, but I still think the foreground is lacking. I had to kind of come a little bit forward than I wanted to, mainly because there was lots of these kind of very ugly sort of potholey type things in the grass. Now, I think this is where things start to get a little bit challenging, because as I say, that light comes up, I really want to hopefully get some colour in those clouds above the mountains. But I think if I was to move myself around to the left here, I might actually be able to include some lovely reflections in the foreground as well. But what I'll do is I'll put this image up that I've just shot from here. Again, it's a 65 by 24, no filters, 2-second timer, boom, image. Not a huge amount of colour in the clouds at the moment. Right, let's skedaddle over here. The main problem with being an old fart is there's not a huge amount of skedaddling that gets done these days. It's mostly skedoodly woodling. Oh, falling over yourself? No. Oh, I'm going to fall down a hole as well. I'm going to fall down a boggy hole. It's funny how something looks like it might work from a... Oh, it might still work. Hang on. Whoop. Really, I'm trying not to fall into... Now, you see, coming down here, now whether it changes as the sun comes up, I've actually lost a lot of that colour. Actually lost my way as well. Lost a lot of that colour and reflection. Oh. And the composition obviously has completely changed. And now to include the boats. As I said, Donegal, it's the street with no bins. It's also the hillsides and the mountainsides and the fields and the valleys and the everything with houses everywhere. Yeah, you would have to include the houses to get the reflections, or you have to include the houses to get the boats, sorry. And then you wouldn't be able to get the mountains in. Oh, challenging. I still think back where I was, but I might say about setting something up here and just see what it's like. Fun times, eh? So, triple quadruple and henceforth guessing myself again. I just don't think this composition down here works now. It might be the clouds above the mountains are starting to take on a little bit of colour, so we might start to get some lovely reflection in this sort of outflow here. But I just think at the moment it's very messy. It might be back to plan B, which was over to the boats and just on the grass there. Also, even down here, even though they're not as prominent, still loads of little bungalows around all the hillside in Donegal. Trying to get an image in County Donegal without a random bungalow in it is, well, rather difficult. Right, those clouds are definitely starting to take on some early morning colour, so time to make a decision, Nigel. Stick or twist? Find out in a bit. So I decided to twist, and I've come up to the original scene that I was shooting with the boats. Now, the sun has risen over the visible horizon, but it's not yet casting a huge amount of colour on the boats, and it's certainly not giving very much colour on the clouds, which is disappointing, nor a huge amount of colour on the sides of the mountains. Again, in a 65 by 24, it's really just about that small sliver of interest here. The boats, the mountains, the clouds, and a little bit of this foreground. Given the lack of kind of colour at the moment, it might be a case of going in and starting to play a little bit with some of the textures, a bit more intimate details on those boats, but we'll stick it out for a bit. I'm going to continue to fine-tune this. Given the fact that light seems to be developing slowly, I'm going to continue to fine-tune this little 65 by 24 scene, and I'll get back to you in a little while. So I just don't think this is working at all. There is some nice light now on Errigal and a few of the other sort of mountains as well, but combination of some old tufty bits of grass and not a huge amount of light on those foreground boats, combined with the fact that there's not a huge amount of interest in the sky above those clouds, is even the 65 by 24 composition is not really doing it for me. So it might be time to revert to plan W or something and go in close to the boats and see whether we can find something there. But this is disappointing because looking at the scene, which we've all been there many times, looking at a scene looks really beautiful, but trying to get something that reflects that beauty and works as a composition, anyway, still lovely to be out. Right, well, I'll throw up this 65 by 24 image anyway, or at least one of them, and then we'll maybe go in a bit closer to those boats. So as you can see, I've now brought myself over to the boats and looking at those more slightly intimate little scenes. God damn it, GoPro! 50% left on the battery and it decides to do nothing. And I was about to bring out the X-T4 and record the little sort of piece, and I realised I hadn't got any batteries with me. Need to get my head in the game a little bit better. I'll talk about that in an upcoming short. But anyway, I carried on shooting this morning. It's now the evening time, if you hadn't guessed, and we're now in a different part of Donegal. Beautiful evening. Decided not to photograph anything, not least because we had a little bit of a fire in the van. Yeah, so it's all good. So I thought I'd kind of stay close. But yeah, so carried on, moved myself up to the boats, and I started looking at kind of little sort of more intimate scenes, just some lovely peeling paint work and things like that. But then I started to maybe think, is there an image to be had maybe with kind of sort of parts of the boats and maybe some of the mountains? So I started to just have a little bit of a play around. So what I'll do is, just as a little bit of an outro, I'll throw up a little bit of B-roll that I shot this morning, and then obviously a couple more images from those boats. Now this is actually our last day in Donegal for a while, we think. So I'm not quite sure where next week's vlog is going to come from, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Back to make sure that the van isn't on fire. Right guys, well once again, thanks a lot for following along. As I say, leave you a little bit of outro and a couple of images from this morning, and until next time, take care.